welcome to the Giving Voice to Depression podcast, produced in partnership with the A.B. Korkor Foundation for Mental Health. I'm Terry, the creator and co-host of this podcast. I've lived with depression most of my life, and I know how easy it can be to feel all alone in the experience. I'm not alone, and you aren't either.
And I'm Dr. Anita Sands, a licensed clinical psychologist and life coach with a number of my own diagnoses, all of which bring a certain amount of anxiety and depression along with them. There is great power in shared experiences. We share our own as we engage in intimate and candid conversations with our weekly guests, exploring different perspectives on and experiences with depression.
We keep it real because depression is real. We keep it hopeful because there truly is hope, in spite of what depression tells you. Hi, Anita.
Hello, Terry. Each week, as part of hearing a bit of our guests' mental health journeys, we look into the wide variety of ways that they manage their depression, or what we often refer to as the tools in their mental health toolkits. And we do this for a number of reasons. It can be validating to hear that other people find success with the tools that we also use, whether that's medication, therapy, music, art, movement, meditation, deep breathing, funny videos, distracting projects, peer support, or anything else that we know and believe helps us stay out of or get out of depression's pit. And it's also valuable to hear about tools that we don't currently use, so that we're reminded that there's always something else to try or try again when we're feeling stuck.
Absolutely. There are daily actions we can take, even when we're feeling okay, to help nourish and center ourselves. And there are triggers or early warning signs that we need to learn, recognize, and manage if we want to give ourselves a fighting chance against an illness that makes it pretty darn hard to take care of ourselves.
And today and next week, we're going to go step by step through creating a WRAP, or a wellness recovery action plan, that you can use as both a reminder and a guide to maintain wellness, and also to turn to in times of difficulty. It's designed as both a tool to learn about yourself, what helps, what doesn't, and as a guide for others to help you, especially in times of crisis.
Our hope is to make the process of creating a WRAP a little bit easier and less daunting. I recently sent an outline for one to a relative, and her first comment was, "I'm going to need some examples." And I said, "Oh, that's exactly what we're going to do in the next 2 weeks' episodes." So in the show notes for this episode, we have linked to a free WRAP plan PDF and outline sort of a form. You can print that out and take notes on it as you listen to these episodes, or pull it up on your screen. If you don't know how to get to the show notes, you can just search for WRAP, that's all caps because it's an acronym, WRAP, Copeland, COPELAND, that's Mary Ellen Copeland, who made the original WRAP plan, and PDF or guide or some word like that, and a whole bunch of different ones will come up. We've chosen one that's really detailed because we'd rather give you more information than to pick a really basic one and you find yourself going, well, what about this section? What about that section? So we picked one that has a lot of sections.
The foundation of WRAP's 6 parts is the wellness toolbox. And so you'll be using those tools to build your own WRAP. And today we're going to look at 3 of those: the daily plan, stressors, and early warning signs. And the next week, we'll talk about the other 3: signs that things are breaking down or getting much worse, a crisis plan, and a post-crisis plan. The Wellness Recovery Action Plan was originally developed by Mary Ellen Copeland and a group of mental health service users who wanted to work on their own recovery. And this is what they found worked for them and what helped them recover from their mental health difficulties. If you want to work on your plan with a friend, a partner, a therapist, understanding the basics will make that process easier. And if you want to do a draft yourself, then this tutorial should help you do that. You can do it all at once, a section at a time, or whatever works for you.
And Anita, we've talked about the fact that this plan is something to make when you are feeling well. It's just easier to do then because you're more resourced, but for a number of other reasons as well.
Right. And so if you're in a place right now where it's not a good time to make up the plan, if you're listening to this, maybe just take a few notes as things come to you that you'd like to remember later. Then when you are in a better place, then you can go ahead and develop that plan from your own notes.
So it starts with your personal information, your name, your doctor's name, your allergies, that kind of thing. And then it asks you to write what you are like when you're well, which is actually an interesting thing to be aware of. I wrote down a couple of things, but I'd like to hear yours as well, Anita. I actually had to look up examples, which made me wonder if I'm okay right now. But
don't feel bad about that.
Thanks.
No, but you're making a good point that, wellness is not just the absence of sickness or illness. It's a concept in and of itself. And so you're right. I think it's actually a really good idea to try to get some sense of what you're like and what you're doing when you are well, not just not sick.
Right.
And there's different ways that I do this when I am trying to make a plan for myself. But I think about what are the things that I can do pretty easily that become either difficult or impossible when I'm not well. That's one of the ways that it kind of gets me thinking about, well, what would I be putting down? So what do you have like categories or things that you would address?
I made a little list. I wrote, taking care of my personal needs. That's something I do when I'm well. Going to work. That might be school for somebody else. I'm interested in things. That's a really key one because when I'm not well, I am not. I can put a big old exclamation point after that. I shop and cook. I care what I eat. I try to prepare healthy meals. Again, not when I'm not well. I laugh and I have patience. And those are two things that really don't happen a lot when I'm unwell.
That's really good. Yeah. And I would look at pretty much those same kinds of things. I'd look at what's my energy level, what kind of habits and routines are easy for me and that I actually enjoy doing when I'm well. Yep. Probably also when I have energy. What's my thought process like when I'm well? What kinds of things am I likely to say to myself or just find myself thinking throughout the day? What's my feeling or mood state? So how do I feel? Not just what am I thinking, but how am I feeling? And then I look at changes and things in relationship and connection. So when I don't have energy and I'm not feeling well, I will isolate. I don't want to spend time around other people. I will, cancel on commitments more likely. So again, I just look at what things can I do easily and they feel good and I like doing them. When I'm not well, it becomes really hard to do or it's just impossible to do and it just gets jettisoned.
I know that one.
So next, we're going to specify wellness tools. And so those are the skills and the strategies for keeping ourselves well and for feeling better when we don't feel well. So you want to think about simple, safe, and accessible. What are the kinds of things that you can do to feel better? That's what this list is all about.
With the outline we're using, the guide we're using, this part of the plan has 4 sections. And the first is list some specific things that work for you to recover or maintain your wellness. You want to start this time?
Yes. For me, and I've mentioned in other episodes the big 4. So I look at nutrition, I look at activity or intentional rest, meaning intentionally not using energy that I don't have, positive social interactions, and what am I doing for stress management or to attempt to lift my mood or remind myself that things will get better. So the big 4 is nutrition, sleep, activity, and stress management. So some version of that, I will look for things that fall under those categories for me. So whatever helps me maintain my wellness. If I'm in recovery mode, I will usually try to double or triple that. So I might need more sleep. I might need better nutrition or like we've said before, simplify it.
Oh yeah.
We want to try to keep it well, but cooking meals may not be the thing that you can do. You still want to have some form of activity, but you know that bar is very low, that I set for myself and other people at times, which is, crawl from the bed to the couch. If you can do that counts, gentle stretching on the floor counts. That's activity. It doesn't have to be, getting on shoes and going walking. And then what are we doing to address, again, the mental and the emotional changes that happen when we're not well? So we've got to feed our brain and our heart some things that help us to get better as well.
Many of those are similar to mine. Okay. So we'll just go on to the second. Okay. I probably am not as mindful as you are of them, but I'm working on it. Okay, so second is list some of the things that give your life meaning or are important to you, inspire you, and remind you of your values. I really like the way that's worded.
That's that's beautiful, actually. Yeah. So, do you want to share what's on your list?
Well, I think actually this podcast is one of the things that gives my life meaning. I think having purpose.
I put helping others, which is kind of one of my big values and purposes in life. So being able to do the things that make me feel good, that I've been able to do some good is really, really important.
Well, it reminds you of your values, right? Just like
exactly.
I also put down connecting with a friend I can be myself with. And that second part's really important because it's not just about socializing, because I find that exhausting as an introvert, but somebody I can be myself with.
Yeah, no, connecting and socializing can actually be the same thing or different things. So I agree that connection, whether or not that's a socializing, is important. I would put the emphasis on that. Yeah. And some other things on my list are, being in nature, giving me a chance to slow down and, be in green spaces, music, art, theater, listening to people's stories. Part of this is what this podcast is about. Kind of reminds me that the world is not only bigger than what I'm going through, but that lots and lots of people are going through lots and lots of really tough things as well. And it really can help you feel like you're not so alone.
Yeah. It's not a misery loves company kind of thing. It's just a connection to like the humanity of it all.
Yeah, I love that. That's it. Okay, so then number 3, you're going to list some things that you would like to try and see if they would support your wellness. So you may know some of the things that for sure work for you, but here's a chance to maybe make up a little try this list. And if you're stuck because you're like, I don't know what to do other than what I'm doing, this is when you can Google 101 things, to manage your stress or to recover from depression or maintain mental health, and start seeing on other people's, 101 things lists. What are some things that you were like, oh, I've never done that, but that sounds like me. That sounds like something I would like. And then you've got a list of things that you can try. And again, not always are these things you want to try to force yourself to do when you don't have energy or you're in a severe depression. But as you get energy and the ability to do things back, trying them before you need them to see, is this something that would actually, help me is a good thing to kind of get going on in the good times.
And it's not just, does it help me? It's, does it feed me? Does this just work? And I'm really grateful you offered that suggestion, because literally this is blank on my wrap plan. So I'm glad that you suggested that. I can find something on a list of 101 options.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. And people are like, that's a thing?
Yeah.
Like, lighting a candle to change the way that my place smells for a little while. It's like, oh, that's a thing you can do that would actually lift your mood. So, there's all kinds of things that you're like, I didn't know that was a thing that you could do.
I literally burn candles during the day. It's just, I'll find myself. It also makes me feel warmer on really cold Wisconsin days. Yep. Nice. Thank you. So 4 then, as critical as it is to know what does work for us, we need to be mindful of what does not. So this question asks you to list things that you need to avoid to stay well. And this one, I've got a long list.
You got a long list of this one.
Unfortunately,
we're really good at usually figuring out what we're doing wrong.
Yes, that is very me.
Does your list look like mine, which is it's the 180-degree opposite of what I need to do to recover?
100%.
Okay.
100%. I'll give you a couple of them, and then you can expose yourself.
Oh yeah.
Staying in bed. is one. I just have to get up. I mean, it never serves my purpose. It might be easy and it might feel like the best way to escape, but it seldom serves me well. Certainly long term, I can do it for a day, but that's it. Eating a box of crackers or some simple carb as a meal.
I've got junk food longer than 2 days in a row.
Yes. Yes. I mean, for a meal, that again, it gets me through a horrible day, but it's not something I want to do.
Yeah, you don't want it to turn into a trend.
You don't. Ignoring calls or texts. And again, this is the opposite of connecting, which we listed above as a good thing to do. Overscheduling myself, which I just am now realizing needs to be put on the, red alert, avoid this. And let's see if I can even read this. Oh, when I let my space reflect my mood. And that basically means that both are a mess. And when I look around and I go, oh, my house looks like my brain feels, then I know that is a bad idea. Yep.
Well, very similar, increased stress or commitment. And that's why I'm such a huge fan of that energy or stress forecasting that, we talked about several episodes back. So overdoing too much movement, because even though activity is great and very helpful for mood and physical stuff, if you have some kinds of chronic illnesses where I don't recover from really strenuous movement, I have to find that Goldilocks, what's just the right amount, not too little, not too much. Staying up too late. Not getting the amount of sleep that I need, but usually that's a sign of, come on, you gotta shift this. You gotta do something about that. And also negative social interaction. There are some people that are fine for me to be around and to do things with when I'm well, but they would really not be good to be around or to expose myself to if I'm really struggling. Usually they don't understand. They don't have that empathy, would not be helpful. So.
And a quick flashback to a previous episode, a recent previous episode, 257, where we talked about, I think we named it, You Don't Have Depression and You Always Will.
You always will.
Yeah, the logic of depression. But that kind of thinking that is the 3 Ps, that's personal, pervasive, and permanent, definitely needs to go in this section for me. Because when I start thinking, I am all sorts of bad
fill
things.
In the blank.
Yeah, exactly. With some
fill
really
in the negative
word.
Blank.
Exactly. And then it just goes from there. And if I think that applies to absolutely everything, not just I did a bad job with this, but I do bad job, and that it's permanent. Those are 3 things that I am now more tuned into. Not that I don't do it anymore, but I'm learning that I go, oh, I'm doing that. And so that is something that goes here into the avoid to stay well.
Right. Because if you avoid doing that, you lessen the chance of going down that bad path. So
bad path rabbit hole.
The bad path. All right, so the next section of the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, or the WRAP, is a daily maintenance plan. And so this is where you spell out how you're going to put the wellness tools that you hopefully just identified into action for daily living. And then there are 3 questions that you answer in this section to come up with your daily maintenance plan. The first one is, this is what I need to do for myself every day to keep myself feeling as well as possible. I'm a stickler about words. And so I rephrase that to, this is what I want to do for myself every day. We don't, again, need to make this a stressful thing. So what do you want to do every day to keep yourself feeling as good as you possibly can?
Are you asking me? The 3 things I wrote here are shower and dress. And I do like to shower every day because it lets me know this mental thing that I am starting a day. And dress, because otherwise I sleep in very comfortable, essentially clothing. So I can get away with just keeping it on. But then when I find I'm going back to bed in it, and then I get up the next day, it's a sign. It's a sign that I'm not living my best life.
Exactly.
And then tidying up to a degree. At the least, I kind of like to keep the dishes out of the sink, which does not mean it's not piled full right now, but it is on my list for today to get that cleared out. So those are little ones for me. And they're actually not little because I haven't done them, but they're little when I'm well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. And to adjust for the fact that there is this fluctuation, certainly, for me, based on energy levels and for you based on depression, I use menu options on my planner. So I'll have here are the things you could do this week financially, that would be really, really good. It kind of keeps your life in order. Here are the menu options for activity. Here's all the things that you could do, everything from, gentle stretching on the floor to, going for a walk or a bike or a hike or something. Menu options for keeping my space clean. Menu options for self-care. Menu options for, hey, if you have the energy and the interest, here's some projects that you wanted to do some steps on. And that way, it's sort of like I have a better chance of choosing from a menu than I do trying to remember what are all the things that I could or should be doing that kind of would keep my life going in a good direction. So when those little menus come up every week, because I write them into my planner, then I can be like, oh, okay, well, today I think what I have the energy to do is work on some financial stuff because I don't have the energy for a lot of movement. But on a day when I have a lot of energy, then I can be like, oh, this would be a great day to get the vacuuming done or, the weeding or whatever. And making it a goal to sort of check off as many as you can realistically do. And on the weeks when it's like, there's no possibility of really being very, functional or productive, then you look at just exclusively your self-care menu. That's sort of the things that, they're the less active, maybe in terms of I'm being productive, but it's sort of like refilling your well so that then you can actually, either the next day or the next week be in a different situation. So then self-care menu is the one I'll choose from and let the other ones go for that week or, really not try to hold myself to any expectation that's just not going to match reality.
Very good advice. The second part of the daily maintenance plan, it says, this is what I need to do less often than every day to keep my overall wellness and sense of well-being. And for me, maybe it's because you kept saying the word menu, but my brain went right to shopping, grocery shopping, because if I have healthy, quick options, and that might be that I can microwave brown rice and quinoa pouch from the freezer or the cupboard or whatever, and at least I know I've got that as opposed to something less nourishing. Having some fruit around, those kinds of things. Because if I don't have fruit, I'm going to grab something less healthy. I would say that. I certainly don't need to grocery shop daily, but the more often I give myself healthy options, the more likely I am to choose them, especially if they're easy, because I'm just looking for something easy to grab when I'm out of energy and just don't care.
No, I think that's really important. The things that you want to do every day should be things that are realistically possible, kind of almost regardless of where you're at, keep it reasonable. And then if we can make some bigger tasks like grocery shopping and menu planning and meal prep, that takes obviously a lot more cognitive and physical effort to do, make that absolutely something you do less than every other day. So that's smart. Okay. And then number 3, these are the things that I know I need to do to sustain my wellness, but I need some reminding to do.
That's so realistic. I love that.
Well, and I just already, I just already talked about this when we were talking about the first one, but I use a planner where I put those menu options in every week. I can't remember. I'm not just, I have a lot of stuff going on, whether it's a good week or a bad week. And I'm going to need reminding. I'm going to need somebody to gently remind me, hey, have you done this? Have you thought about doing that? I'm not going to remember those lists of options, especially if it's a bad week. So that's one of the key concepts of WRAP was personal responsibility. There were hope, personal responsibility, education, self-advocacy, and support. But I think this is where I use the personal responsibility piece in. I'm not going to expect anybody else to remember this. I'm not even going to expect myself to remember this. So I'll take the responsibility to put the reminders down. Here's your menu. Pick what would you like to pick from, and that will keep me more on track because I need the reminding but I don't think anybody else is probably going to be great at reminding me of just all of these really intricate little menus. So that's my job.
I'm going to give one example of having someone else remind you, because sometimes I need that motivation and reminder to come from the outside. But one of the things I definitely need reminding to do is to move. And movement is good for us for all kinds of reasons. And to some extent, we can move, and it's healthy. And there's a 4-minute exercise plan, and you're supposed to do it 3 times a day. So we're talking about 12 minutes. You can vary it based on your ability and your energy. And my little sister, Bridget, who some of you remember from co-hosting the first 5 years, and I are doing it together. So you do it 3 times a day. So we just send each other a 1, a 2, and then later a 3. And it's like, I've done it 3 times today. And so it's
great for accountability. Yeah. I love that.
We've just started because we just both feel the need to do it. And also it helps to be reminded. So my point with that is that the reminder can come externally.
Absolutely.
If you need it,
and if
someone's
it's helpful.
willing.
No, and I think that's great. That's kind of the buddy system, and I absolutely adore that. So,
yes, I agree. Okay, so now we turn to part 2 of the wrap, which is identifying stressors. I'm using the word stressors instead of triggers. Red flags works, but triggers is a little overused these days, I think, and it makes some people cringe. So we're going to use the word stressors for most of this. Those are going to come up. They're going to come up and cause a reaction within us. That's life. The goal here is to help us plan for them so that we have a chance to respond in ways that don't set off a chain reaction of uncomfortable or unhelpful behaviors, thoughts, or feelings that disrupt our wellness. Once we identify and recognize them, we can make an action plan to respond to them.
In your plan, you can list ways that you can avoid or limit your exposure to stressors, as well as what you can do to help yourself cope if and when those stressors do occur, and what can be done when you are stressed to prevent things from getting worse. So there's a room to list all of your red flags or stressors individually, and to note on your action plan how you can avoid or cope with each of them. So really common stressors for people, I just sort of made a list. They certainly apply to me. They apply to so many people. Financial stress. Anybody that you care about, if their health or their mood or their life, they're having some life struggles, that's a stressor. If you feel unsafe, if you feel threatened by something, conflict or fear of conflict, feeling like you're falling behind or that you're not enough, that you can't keep up, that's a stressor. And your own flare-up of your mental health and or your physical health symptoms are stressors. You're going to respond to those and start, like you said, sets off that chain reaction of unhelpful behaviors, thoughts, feelings, because you tend to start worrying, getting some fear going, and just makes it harder to function.
So you mentioned the being overworked. I have written down having too much to do, because that leads me to feeling overwhelmed, and then I don't do anything. And then I feel terrible about myself and doubt my own abilities. So, if I can catch that earlier in the stream, like right when I realize I have too much to do or when I'm feeling overwhelmed, before I start beating up on myself, that would be incredibly helpful in terms of my slide. And I'm highly aware, because I think I am right there. I'm not in any crisis situation, but I am certainly not being my best self right now. I'm realizing when I hear myself say, and it can be thinking or actually out loud, what is wrong with me? And I'm realizing that is a big red flag. And I need to stop and say like, whoa, because I know where this goes and it's nowhere I want to go.
That's an early warning sign for you.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And when I've been walking around the house just going, what is wrong with you? And I think, wow, I would.
Oh, yeah. Would you say that to anyone else?
Exactly. Right. Can you imagine me just looking at someone? What the hell's wrong with you? But I've been doing it to myself for about 3 days now. So I know that I need to take note. So
that's a red flag.
Yep.
For sure. Okay.
Moving on to part 3 of the wrap, that is early warning signs. While stressors or triggers or red flags are things that happen around us, early warning signs are the subtle changes in our thoughts, feelings, or behaviors which indicate we may need to take action to avoid a worsening of our condition or situation. There is a recognition component to this, of course. We need to notice what changes for you.
and a plan. Like, what action can you take when you notice those early warning signs to keep yourself well, prevent things from getting worse? I try to just have a couple little rules of thumb that make this easy for me to figure out, so when I look at nutrition, when I look at sleep, activity, social connection, stress management, if I'm doing too much or too little of it, and I'm doing it more than 2 days in a row, 2 days in a row, especially of doing things that are probably not going to help with wellness, that's the early warning sign for me. That's a possible trend, because we can have a bad day. We can have a couple of days that are really tough.
Yep.
If I'm still either doing things that are unhelpful, not doing things that would be helpful, that's a trend. I always say 3 data points. Now we can connect that. We have a trend going. And that for me is the sign. Okay, you got to stop, assess this, start a reversal. You got to have the plan for the reversal. And that's where the wrap can be really helpful.
We did an episode with I think his name was Matt, saying the 3 days. He gives himself 3 days to feel his feelings. And then he says, I got to get up, or I know where this goes. I, out of order, said an early warning sign, so I'll move that to here. But another early warning sign of mine, which I've only recently sort of become aware of. And again, as I say, I am sort of there right now. So I'm doing these things and noticing these things. But my impatience, I'm usually a very chill driver. I don't care. I don't like it when someone goes slowly in the left lane, but I go around them, and I didn't mean to say him. I meant to say them. But I have been finding myself saying, it's the long one on the right, speed up. And I just I'm just being a jerk. I'm not flipping anybody off or doing anything to the other people, but inside I am. And why bother to get all wound up about it? So when I start being that person, that is an early warning sign.
Oh yeah, that's on my list too. Is when I begin to almost consistently misinterpret, what people are saying to me, I'm overreacting, either to a person or a situation. That's a great early warning sign. That means, wait a minute, something is off, and you're not able to sort of stay kind of in control and have the ability to think and feel your way and process your way through things really appropriately. So yeah, that irritation, that misinterpretation, that overreacting, I think for most people would probably be an early warning sign. And the everyone syndrome, as I call it, when my kids would say, my teacher doesn't like me, I'd say, oh, maybe not. When they said none of the teachers like me, I was like, oh, that's you. And so when the extremes,
exactly, the pervasive and the P's. When my sister will call me out on it, because when I say like, oh, I really am mad at so-and-so, and she'll say, are you mad at everyone? And I'll have to stop and go like, I am. Yeah, I am.
Then check yourself, because you might. That might be one of those situations you're overreacting or misinterpreting.
Exactly. Yeah. Those are you use the therapist words for it. I just use the word pissed at everyone.
Pissed at everyone. Yes, oh, that's a good way to describe it.
That works too, right?
Got up on the wrong side of the bed, or didn't get out of the bed this morning.
Didn't get out. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, as with the stressors part of the wrap, the form for early warning signs has space for you to list all of your individual signs, the ways that you're going to deal with each of those.
So we're going to stop here for this episode, which is probably already longer than the usual one, but it's important because this can really make a difference. We will finish this Wellness Recovery Action Plan walkthrough next week when we look at part 4, signs that things are breaking down or getting much worse. And part 5, crisis planning. And then 6 is going to be sort of a looking back on it after you come out of the crisis and just sort of reevaluating. Did the plan work? Right. Does it need to be revised?
And again, the link to the free PDF that we're using as a guide, it's an abbreviated version of WRAP, adapted from the Wellness and Recovery Action Plan by Mary Ellen Copeland, and we've linked it to this episode. So if you didn't have it in front of you, as you listened the first time, go get it, re-listen the episode, and be ready for next week when we go through the last part of it. We truly hope that our podcast brings a little more understanding, helps you better articulate and reflect on your own experience with depression, or better understand how to support someone else who is struggling.
If this episode has been of comfort or value to you, know that there are hundreds of others like it in our archive, which you can easily find at our website, givingvoicetodepression.com. And remember, if you're struggling, speak up, even if it's hard. If someone else is struggling, take the time to listen.